All right, so we're back at it. It's beautiful Sunday afternoon here. I think it's like July 28th. Yeah, that's the day it is. And we're getting back at it here. So what we wanted to do is, after we made the repairs on the chassis here, we wanted to stop for a second and figure out what's the pathway. What are we going to do? How should we approach this? And that type of things. Okay, so just to recap, we went ahead in the two sections here on the driver's side and over on the passenger side, where it was really heavily pitted and it lost at least 50% of the metal there. We put new ones in, and they're in there firm and they're thick metal and they're not going anywhere, and they're going to do their job. We're welded in pretty well. It looks ugly. It looks ugly. I cleaned it up with a welder in most cases, but it's spotty with it. Now we still got other sections like here that are pitted. These were the rivets that came through. I decided to weld those rivets back in because we're going to take a different approach. We're not going to remove the metal and replace it here because none of this is really deep. It's just kind of a little bit of pitting. Did clean it up. We got it here, and then we got some other on the outside that's underneath that 2x4. I'll talk about that in a second. So what we're going to do with that is on the super low spots that were low, we're just going to take the welder. I'm going to clean it up with the surfacing tool first and wire brushes and stuff. Get it good and clean. Then we're just going to take the welder and we're going to fill in the low spots with the welder because there's not a lot. And then we'll go ahead and we'll grind it flat on those places. On any place that we can't really fill or isn't super low but really should have something, because we don't want stuff to sit in it, we're then going to take some thickened epoxy, waterproof epoxy, and we're going to just put it in there smoother, not cosmetically, but because we want to keep crap out of it. And then we're going to do the same to places like this where we have the bracket that comes in. You can see where some of this has been rusted through, but not rusted through, but it's got rusting in there. So we're going to clean that right out. We'll go ahead and any place that needs to be filled with weld, we'll fill with weld, but then we're going to fill it with epoxy so it doesn't collect crap and all that stuff, because that's what decay's at. Now, the reason the 2x4 is on here is I wanted to get a good flat straight measurement for the bottom of the 2x4 here. Sit down and look at it. Bottom of the 2x4 represents the top part of the frame where it's level with the back. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to make a structure that probably out of 3-inch square tubing, and then plate, a big thick plate that'll come down and attach to the frame and then go to the tubing on both sides. And then we can do it the same. Now this is opened on this side, so we'll, instead of doing the whole entire thing and boxing the whole entire structure, we'll do pieces of that on the inside of that to keep it open and clear so that we can run the channel and stuff like that. The reason we want to do that is when we build the carriage, the slide carriage for it, the slide carriage we're going to build, we're going to attach right to the very end. Use big bearings and bid pins here, and then a rod to stabilize in the center. It'll have reverse channels. So if you see this channel here that's like this, it'll have channel to go the other direction. And then we'll have rollers on top. Now it won't be this thick, it won't be this wide. It'll be thicker metal, but it'll be thinner. Because then we'll have another channel that's built onto the bed that'll slide over it, and it will run on the slides, okay? The slide's going to end up just above this with enough space for the bed when it slides on. It'll run the length, okay? But the majority of the slide will sit just above this area. The side will terminate right around here at this bracketing piece, and then the arms will extend and rest on top of the new ones that we're gonna go. So when the hydraulics push it, it's gonna push it out. We'll put, like, I don't know, an eighth or probably about an eighth of an inch spacing here, clearance on it. It'll push it straight out. Remember, we're gonna use lift arms like on Big Bertha, so as it starts to pull back, it'll start to lift up and tip. The carriage will tip with it. The hydraulics will tilt it right down at an angle, and I have all the geometry figured out for it, and come down and set. Then you'll just pull or drive your car up, then reverse the process and pull it back in. It shouldn't tweak because the shouldn't torque at all, because the lift arms will be centering it and keeping it straight on the track. The track will be firmly set up so it won't move. Everything will be done with heavy stuff, and it'll rotate at this point. We'll box this in so it's nice and tight, and we can keep all this inner structure in there so nothing changes. And if we figure we have to add more structure, we can do that. So that's what we're going to do for the final piece of that. And remember, we're doing the flip gate. We're designing the flip gate now. I'm pretty sure I know what I'm going to do with that. So we'll talk more about that once we get to that point. But our process is going to be, pull this apart. We're going to clean this entire thing up. We're going to fill the well, smooth it out, get everything clean. Then we're going to use pour or something to paint it so that the frame stays in good shape. With that, and then we'll focus on the rear differential, whether we keep this one and we rebuild it, or like I was telling you earlier, I found a C30 with a 2-speed rear axle. It's bigger, heavier duty, but it's it'll only push the backing plate out about what, less than an inch on each side. So it'll be more or less in the same plate. It'll be heavier duty. I'll get the heavier duty suspension with it. We'll attach to it, and if we need to refix to make sure that these can handle the load, we'll do that too. But we should be able to carry anywhere from 8,000 to 10,000 pounds on the back of this without any real problem when we get done. All right, so that's what you're going to see coming up. You're going to see first cleaning it up. You're going to see us filling in the welds, getting it all set, pouring it, and then dropping the rear end off and getting all that situation set up. All right, so hang tight and we'll get set up and we'll start to do that. Okay, what do you say we clean the frame rapidly? So, yuck, raining today, but that's a rapid knockdown, you can see here, of super heavy stuff. You obviously got to get in with tighter brushes and smaller wire wheels to get this totally cleaned up, but we're about to do that. We'll get inside the channels and everything, get everything cleaned out, get all the crap out of it, and then we're going to hit it with some rust preventer. We're not going to worry about stuff like this because we're going to pull all this apart when we redo the thing. So we're just worrying about the chassis. We'll get in here with a wire wheel on a drill to get that. But there's the big conditioning machine running and knocking off big stuff to do that. So once we have this all cleaned off, we'll go ahead and we're going to fill some of these holes with weld and then grind it down on all these spots here. And then once we do that, we're going to hit it with some rust deactivator. And then we'll seal it up with some decent chassis paint here to get everything covered. We might even pull these out. Definitely going to get in here to get them cleaned apart. We may have to butt that suspension off in order to do it right, but that's where we're at. We're cleaning this sucker up and we're going to get ready to start building on top of it for the chassis. Got some of the parts ID'd metals that I'm going to need. We're going to get them ordered here, and we'll start flying on this thing. All right, so hang on, and we'll be right back with the next phase. Okay, so we did some cleanup, but we got to get a brush set so we can get inside the channels. But what I did here is I laid some weld down, as you can see. I'm going to grind it flat, and we'll see what it looks like, because if this technique works, we'll fill in the larger gaps with this and weld it down, and not really worry about it. What we're just trying to do is make sure it's strong and it's not going to get filled with crap. So let's put you down there like that and do a little grinding here. Grab these gloves while we're doing it. See what we get. Right. Well, that certainly looks like it's going to work to me. Oops, sorry. Gave you a little kick. It flattens out pretty well. So we'll get it to appropriate fill levels and grind, you know, relatively flat here. We'll fill it in more into there, and we'll come back and take a look after we got that done and see how that rail looks. But it looks like that's going to work. We can pop some in there and clean it up. We don't have to fill it. We can just kind of fortify it up a little bit. All right, so let's see how that works. We'll be back. Okay, so we put weld into the deepest divots, and we got it relatively flat. The only real issue with this is it creates other divots, right? Because as you do it, if you don't fill in the entire area, it leaves other places for crap. But the majority of the deep spots, let's go over here and take a look at this one, have been filled and ground flat. I mean, deep spots to me are greater than a 1/16 or something, and most of these are less than. I mean, it's hard to tell from the camera, I know, for the depth because it's very pockety, but if they're not that deep. They're just, it's very wavy and wobbly because it decayed stuff. This is probably a little different. This is probably right on the threshold area right here, but we're not going to worry about it. What we're going to do is, this one was pretty deep. We're going to clean this off. We're going to do our epoxy coat. We're going to use the thickened epoxy to fill in the rest, just to make sure it doesn't divot. I don't think we got any strength reduction, and we're going to go ahead and box these rails anyway, so we got nice firm rails for when we do the rollback on it. So I don't think we're going to have any issue whatsoever. I have to straighten this part up, and I got a piece on the bottom, but it's not too bad. We've got to get a wire set to finish cleaning it off. We want to knock off all the loose surface rust and stuff And then we'll use a rust converter spray and rust converter for it to convert everything out, get it stable, and then we'll hit it with paint once we're all set and ready to go to make sure that it stays solid. So it won't go anywhere, and we will be able to do what we want with it. We've gotten down in here and cleaned these totally out. We're going to fill those, cap the bottom and fill them with epoxy so that they won't fill up as either, and it should be just fine. So we'll take you to the next step here. All right, see you in a little bit. Hi there. Get this out of my face a little bit. So we're working on getting all the loose rust knocked off here so that we can hit it with some rust stabilizer. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to fill in a little bit more of the low spots with welding, grind it flat, and then we'll be in pretty good shape on the frame. We'll come back, we'll hit it with the stabilizing stuff, and then that's probably where we're going to end this video, and then we'll hop into the next video, which will be getting it set up and setting up the tilting platform and the deck for the project itself. After that, we'll then probably take a little break from the framework and go up, yank the drivetrain, get the drivetrain set up so we can go in and test what we just built, go ahead and test what we built, and then we'll pull the body off, we'll do the rest of the frame and attack the suspension. The very last thing we'll do is inside that body. So let's go ahead and let's get this thing clean real fast, as quick as we can here, and we'll get moving on with the project. We went down and we looked at the 2-speed rear end out of a C30. Just way too big. It would change the geometry of everything. So we're not going to do that. We're going to take another path, which will either be a 5 or a 6-speed in it, or a gears bender overdrive unit for cruising once we get going. So we'll let you know what we're going to do there. But let's go ahead and let's take off and warp this thing right out of here and get it taken care of. When you do this, make sure you wear a mask, because rust, you don't want it in your lungs. Alright, so the majority of the big stuff is knocked off the frame. We still got dark spots, which is okay. We might go back with a smaller cup brush and just ping those a little bit before we hit it with the spray. We're going to go right up to about here with it. We're not going to worry about that bracket. We'll get that stuff after we do that. We're not going to worry about the drive shafts because they're going to be serviced anyways. We're just going to get in here. We'll give another vacuum and a quick spray out of this. Make sure it's clean, but we got the majority of the stuff knocked off. Got stuff over here that's pretty crusty, so we'll stabilize it. And once we get it all stabilized, we'll be ready to go ahead and do modifications to the frame. So on the next one, we'll sit down, we'll go through a little mathematics to show you how we're going to design these things, what we're going to do, where we're going to reinforce when we put the tilt frame on it, and how we're going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pour a little bit more weld into some of these lower spots. This came out okay. You can see it's still got little gaps, so we'll probably still fill it in with the epoxy once we get it done. But some of the where the metal loss is here and over on a couple of channels over there, we're going to pop a little bit more weld in there and grind everything nice and flat. Then we'll put some epoxy in it just to seal it up so that we don't get crap stuck between the seams of the welds. It puts a little pocking and seams where we welded and where we didn't weld, so we'll cover that up, and we'll be ready to go. Basically what's going to happen when we redo that design is the tilt for the frame for the rollback is going to sit right here at the end. So what we're going to do is box and tube it, put a big rotating pin in here so that it can swivel on it, make it nice and heavy duty and be supported, and we'll be rock and roll ready to go. But we will go ahead and we will do that as part of the next video. We'll end it once we've got this frame hit with the converter rust and we're ready to make the next step. And then we'll go right in and we'll go ahead and do the math and the redesign and put together a bed and a tilting arrangement for the C30, and we'll be ready to rock and roll into the next video after that one. All right, so we'll get you again when we got all this all wrapped up, and we'll show you the finished product. All right, so we're out with Big Bertha, and we got her deck up in here so we can take a good look. Okay, so this is how we're going to implement on the C30. You see she's got the lift arms, so as she pulls forward when she rocks, she raises up on the lift arms. It goes out about 10 feet. That's about 10 feet from the pivot point. The amount of bed, this is a 17-foot bed on it, that it does that. And the way that the slider's implemented, if you get up in here and you look, is we have the cylinders here that are connected to the slider frame. They go down and they're cradled in the bottom, but then the arms are attached to the bed portion here on the other end. Now right here, the end of the sliders, these are 5-inch sliders. The channel's 6 inches with 5.5 inches on the inside. And you can see that there is a nut and a screw right here with a block. So probably what happens is to tension this, they have a ramp in there that either pushes rollers up to the top to tension it, or sliders, just regular old block sliders that wear. And I'll bet you they're just block sliders that wear, because what you do is you take that pulled apart when it's down, replace them and put it all back together as part of your normal maintenance. So we're going to do something similar, and we're going to do rollers so it's a little bit more durable, and they may be prefixed up in there because they'll be on bearings in their rollers. I've made some 1-inch rollers that are 500-pound capacity, so if we do 4 feet, put it every 4 inches, we'll have like 10,000 pounds worth of capacity. We're only going to go to 8 or 9, so we should be in good shape. But this is how we're going to implement. You can see the pivot point right down here. The cradle is just attached to the pivot point all the way across and secured with a bottom piece. We're going to do the same thing. We'll come up and put the sliders on like this. We'll secure at the top for that. We'll pop our hydraulics in just the way that they did it, coming through, and then attach it to that, and then let the arms rock it up. We're just going to be a little lighter duty. The hydraulics they have here, they got a filter on there. This goes off to the manifold to control. Off of the back, it comes back up into here and feeds the tank. So the way that it works is the PTO pump is right here. This is the intake for the PTO pump. This is the output for the PTO pump. The output of the PTO pump then runs down a solid line, goes all the way down, and it feeds the manifolds. The manifolds do their trick. They come back, the return juice comes through that filter and back into the tank right here. You have the tank fill here and a bleeder here. You can pull this off, you can check the level, and you can fill or bleed by either, but like that. And the other one is a bigger, well, thank you very much there. Some cranky people. This is the bleeder, you can tell because it's got a hole in the cap right here, and this is the plug fill, so you can fill by the bleeder as well. But it's pretty simple. Mine, this has a hydraulic winch with a hydraulic motor. We're going to use a good old standard 13,000 pound Badlands or something similar winch for winching up cars and stuff for us, so that it's going to be all electric. Its suspension is set up the same way, except it's a little heavier duty, right? You get your main springs, you get your overload springs, you get your landing pads. Going down on a big axle. It's got a 2-speed in it, so you can go granny gearing, and then when you're on highway, kick it up. We're going to do that, like I was saying though earlier. The C50 rear end is just way too big. It changes the geometry of everything when you're doing it, and we don't want to change the geometry, so we'll either go with a 5-speed, which I don't think we do because we got the transmission that we want. I think what we're going to do is find a gear vendor's overdrive unit. We'll put a gear vendor's overdrive unit on it, and so when we're in cruise mode, after we pick something up, you just pop it into that and let her fly on down the highway. Okay, so that's how that looks like. That's part of the design. We'll show you the design coming up here in just a little bit as we draw it out, and then we'll start to build it. All right, so stay tuned. We'll be back with that. All right, we're back, and the rust converter came in. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to convert some rust on the frame and get this thing wrapped up and switched over to the next phase of the project. Let's go. right. Can number one is pretty much mostly gone. So what we're going to do is we're going to let this dry. We had another can that we'll use. We'll get underneath the rails so we get them covered too. We'll do touch-ups, and then we'll come back and we'll show you the finished product. We'll end the video there, and we'll move on to the next section, which will be getting it all set up and getting a designed and placed slider platform for the rollback to sit on. So stay tuned. We got more exciting stuff to come. We appreciate you watching the video, and if you would, do all that jazz for me. It helps us grow the channel, and we really appreciate it. So we'll see you shortly with that last one, and thanks for watching. All right, so let's wrap this one up. Here's the frame. It's drying, it's doing it. It's got a couple touch-up spots we're gonna hit, but for the most part, the converter's done its job and converted stuff. We got a couple areas we missed while we were doing it. So, you know, like right in here, you can see it. We'll get that touched up. A little bit in here, a little there, and a little there, where we didn't spray very well. But for the most part, we got it wrapped up. We're gonna wrap this one up. Thanks for watching. We really appreciate it. Do that, all that jazz for me. Like I said, just like in your perspective a minute ago, I would appreciate it. And we'll get queued up for the next one, which is to get the tilt mechanism built on this sucker so that we can go ahead and get the bed mounted and do that. So again, thanks a lot, guys. We appreciate you. Keep watching. We got more to come. We'll catch you later.